All right. Thanks so much, Bob. And yeah, thanks to all the panelists and for those attending that we can't see. Maybe just 45, 60 seconds on my life story. Graduated from college in 1990 and started my first company called Eco Products. So right out of college, wanted to sell better products, get environmental products into the marketplace. It's always been a passion of mine. My dad was chairman of the board of the local recycling company, so it was always instilled in my family to be good, to be environmental products. I was a big outdoorsman, climbed lots of 14ers. So out of college, I wanted to, at the time, bring recycled products into the marketplace. So the recycled arrow is 3 arrows. First one's collection, then manufacturing, and no one was bringing the manufactured recycled goods into the marketplace. So my dad and I started Eco Products with that business plan. We grew Eco Products to about 5 million in 15 years. We had a nice little business, slightly profitable. Then we had abnormal success in a part of our business, which was taking compostable resin pellets and making compostable cups, plates, bowls, clamshells, cutlery. So making the environmental or the food service category more environmental or sustainable by bringing in compostable food service items. The business went from 5 to 50 in 1 year. And then in about 3 more years, it was over 100 million, and I sold that and started another company called 1908 Brands. Our first and still biggest brand is Boulder Clean. It's plant-based cleaners and detergents. And that business has been growing. And what's interesting, and I'm going to get, kind of to a business side of things, but the business is growing. And during COVID, being in the environmental business or cleaning space, having a plant-based disinfectant, I mean, we're going from about 8 to over 120 million this year, and we're forecasting $1 billion next year.
Whoa.
And so what really I want to instill on people is it is great to be green. You should be green. It should be part of your everything you do every day in your business. But there's a great book out there called Green to Gold, and there's actually selfish reasons to be green, because you know what, everybody wants a better product. Nobody wants chemicals in their laundry detergent. Nobody wants bad indoor quality in their house. Everybody wants to be green. In Green to Gold, the book, there's great stories on how businesses are successful being green. I don't know if anyone knows, but Toyota was not the biggest car manufacturer when they launched the Prius. I think they were like 3rd or 4th, but they launched the Prius and it instantly became the #1 selling car. And they became the #1 biggest car manufacturer in the world. So being green is great for an environmental perspective. We should all do that. But it's also good for your business because people want to be good. And by being green, I mean, your business should be more successful. Now, that doesn't mean you can go out and all of a sudden make products that don't work. I mean, I can make my laundry detergent greener, but then we want to get out stains. So, you also need to have customer satisfaction as well. Like the compostable cup at Eco Products. I mean, I remember Hilton Resort saying it's compostable, it's from renewable resources, and it costs the same price and the quality is the same. Where do I sign up? So you do need to check all those boxes, just like the Prius, right? The Prius is a great car. I mean, there's no sacrifices, there's no consumer sacrifices when switching from, let's say, an Elantra to a Prius. You don't have to give up anything. So being green, you do also need to remember that you should be price competitive. The quality of the products should be similar, and ultimately the customer experience needs to be there, because no one's going to live in a house where, you know, the electricity can't work 6 hours a day, right? So yeah, I mean, that's a little bit my life story. You know, I'm not trying to sound like I'm being selfish, but I also want people to understand that, you know, you don't necessarily need to sacrifice your business, because people want your products if they're better and they, you know, the consumer experience. So that's one part about the profitability and building a business to be successful. But it does the leadership. I mean, it needs to be part of your DNA. I mean, you can't show up to work and say, let's be green, and you pulled up in a Yukon. I mean, you have to live, breathe, you know, and bleed green yourself. I mean, you have to have a green team. Being a B Corp, I feel like, is just checking a box. I mean, everyone should be a B Corp. If you're not a B Corp, you know, you should at least do the things that is necessary to be a B Corp. But also, why not be 1% for the planet also? Because being a B Corp is good inside your walls. That means you're recycling or composting or trying to save energy, or you know, you have an electric charger outside your building. Those are all boxes that I feel like everybody should check. I mean, to run a good environmental business, you should be a B Corp. But there's other things you can do. 1% for the planet is optional. And those are things that are outside of your walls that maybe you won't get immediate benefit. Writing a check to Thorn Ecological Institute or some other renewable energy company, or donating to Conscious Alliance. And these are all things that are extra. But I mean, again, we sell consumer products. We're able to put that 1% for the planet on our packaging. I mean, we do it for a number of reasons. We want to do it. We feel like we should do it. And, you know, it also helps you sell products because people want to support, especially with this new generation coming up. People want to support green businesses. So, I mean, there's lots of reasons to be green. And if you're not, you know, you need to get on the bandwagon, else this new generation will not buy your products. And, you know, in Boulder, we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of the big companies buy our, you know, environmental businesses, because they know they need to jump on the bandwagon, else this new consumer is going to pass them by. So I hope that helps. Happy to answer questions. Maybe Bob, should we kind of go through the panel and, you know, ask, you know, what are you doing in your business? Why are you doing it? How do you, you know, are you hoping it benefits from sales, or maybe each panel spend a couple minutes answering some of those questions?
Sure, we can open it up to the panel. I first of all, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for exposing the elephant in the middle of the room. I mean, oftentimes when we bring people together and we're going to talk about the relationship between business and public purpose, it's usually all the choir members that come in. It's people that are kind of already thinking that way. And what I find is that the bottom line of profit, we sometimes we call triple bottom line and so on, but that single bottom line of profit is sometimes not addressed. And I'm glad that you brought that into the conversation, because I think it's the one that people are shy about. They're not quite sure how to talk about it, and talk about the balance in that triple bottom line. So no, thank you for doing that. And yes, let's open it up to the panel, questions or comments. Yeah, let's start the discussion.
Okay, why don't I pick somebody? Tell us a little bit what you're up to and why you're doing what you're doing, and when you get out into the work world, how do you plan on inspiring your business, that business, to be successful?
So right now I'm a freshman at Boston College on the pre-med track, but I'm also, my dad's run and started businesses, software companies, but so I'm kind of thinking, I did a bit of research at Stedman last year, which has kind of gotten me thinking all about how much waste the medical field, I guess, in general produces, and how it's really hard because of just the nature of the waste to make it more environmentally friendly. So since last year, I've kind of been thinking it would be really cool if after I get my degree here, which is a research-oriented degree, I somehow figure out a way to incorporate my research into creating maybe a way to make the medical field a little bit more environmentally friendly before I go on to med school eventually. So that's kind of my hope with my future right now.
And I mean, obviously a huge opportunity there. Yes, I know the medical waste. I mean, it's just a huge landfill problem. Yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity there to, divert that from landfills. And again, I mean, everybody would love to see that happen. Obviously, an organization needs to be put together to solve the problems. There's going to be issues, bandages and so forth. And maybe some problems won't be able to be solved, but yes, medical waste is a huge problem.
Definitely. And then I actually had a question too. Do you notice a difference between sales and interest in a place that would be, I would say, considered stereotypically environmentally conscious, like Boulder, and places that aren't?
Yes, I mean, definitely that, environmental products sell better in blue states than red states. Maybe they're more educated, I don't know, but yes, there is certainly better sales in certain demographics. There's more knowledge, there's better education. Yes, I mean, there's no question that demographically, some areas are more in tune with environmental issues than others. Okay, Travis, what are you up to, and how do you bring green initiatives into your business?
Hey, Steve, thanks for joining us, and it's really inspirational to hear your story. I own and operate the world's only, well, the first and only B Corp certified surf and yoga camp in Osa, Costa Rica. And what we're really doing is facilitating an experience that incentivizes or inspires pro-environmental behavior change in our guests. So we use our 4 tools really, which are surfing, yoga, nature immersion, and community engagement, to facilitate an experience that will help people think about the relationship with the ocean, with themselves, and hopefully have them change some of their behaviors and attitudes once they get back home. I actually spoke yesterday quite a bit, so some of these people that are on this call heard a lot of what I'm doing. But one thing I wanted to ask you was, and I feel like you already expressed this a little bit, but something that I touched upon yesterday was how our voice and power is amplified by dollar voting, right? And where we spend our money. And you highlighted it very well. We can't lead if we show up to work and I don't know what car you said it was, a Yukon, and ask everyone else to be green. We have to lead through action. And I wanted to hear your thoughts, particularly on the B Corp movement, how it's grown quickly, and how companies like Danone, huge multinational corporations, are now becoming B Corp certified. And if you feel that the B Corp certification might lose its value or become somewhat greenwashed, if you will. That's a pretty hard question to answer, but I would like to hear your thought on the growth of the B movement and those type of companies coming into the picture. Because I often ask myself too, like, why doesn't every business at least use the free tool, the B impact analysis assessment? Why aren't all businesses going that route? What is the thing that we need to do to shift so all businesses head that direction? Sorry, that's a loaded question.
Yeah. And for maybe there's some people in the audience that don't fully understand B Corp. So B Corp, your first step is to be a certified B Corp. So you have to take a test and you have to get 80 out of 200 to be a certified B Corp, which sort of sounds easy, 80 out of 200, but it's actually really, really hard. And it's getting harder. So then you're a certified B Corp. And after you're a certified B Corp, there's 6 or 9 month deadline to be a registered B Corp. So you have to register with your state, and it's for a public benefit. You're now called a public benefit corporation. So we were a C Corp, public benefit corporation. What that means is, as a company, there's other considerations when you manage your business. So if I was to sell one of our brands, let's just say Thrive Tribe, and I didn't want to sell it to a company that didn't have the same values we did, and I wanted to accept more from another business that did have similar values, I don't have to take the highest bid. So there's other considerations than just the fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders, like the environment, like your employees, like the community. Because if someone's going to buy one of my brands and, put a bunch of sugar in it and lay off half my staff, even though they're paying me the most money, as a B Corp, I have other considerations. So that's kind of the philosophy of B Corp. Your question is B Corp going to be diminished? I don't think so, because it is very hard and they are very ethical. And if you don't pass, you don't pass. For Danone and some of the other companies you mentioned, they are building those philosophies into the DNA. I have spoke at Danone before. And yeah, they want to do good. They do it with their packaging. They do it with, how they operate. They have they're trying to get net zero emissions in their building. So it's in their DNA, and most companies, they're not ready. They don't want to do that. And, again, what I said earlier is, if they don't do it, they're going to be left behind. So that's why so many companies are becoming B Corps, is because they know they will be left behind. The great news about the new generation and just the world in general is, again, people want to do good. You just need to show them the way. All right. So Brian Thompson, what are you up to?
Sure. Yeah. And first of all, thanks for being here and sharing your insights and experience today. Really appreciate it. I think to start off with why this is important to me, being a good ethical citizen and leader, really it's twofold, right? I think that it's important to be a good community citizen, right? We all have responsibility to look after the public goods and make sure that they're there for next generations. And also, I think, just with my background being in the military, I've always felt like a team approach to things is so much more valuable and can get the job done a lot better than having sort of a disjointed individual approach to those problems. So I think that as a community, sort of seeing it as a team to tackle a lot of these issues will be most valuable. And then the way that I'm sort of using that in my business is a classmate and I recently stood up our own consultancy to help small businesses. So we'd really like to be able to provide, some of these insights to some of these small businesses that are looking to go the B Corp route. So, and then from there, a question for you. So we talked a little bit about the triple bottom line and the bottom line and the importance of being able to look at both of those things. So do you see a B Corp as sort of being a backstop to the temptation to maybe improve margins or having investor pressure to do that sort of thing? Or do you see it more of being from a corporate culture or a combination of those things?
It's a combination of those things. Again, it starts with the leader, and the leader's team starts with building, a group in your team that actually manages your emissions and your carbon offsets and so forth. But it starts with leadership. You have a team, your green team. and they hold everyone else sort of accountable. There's processes that you need to put in place because, I mean, again, it's not easy. I mean, you got to start from the top down, but the team is really in the leadership. The CEO should be on that team. And it just needs to be in your DNA. Then it's not hard. I mean, it's actually, well, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I mean, it's just like a sales meeting or a marketing meeting or an operations meeting. I mean, it's just another team and another department in your company. Looking at new packaging. So, I mean, packaging in my industry, I mean, it's not good. And the team is out there looking for ocean plastics or, post-consumer plastics and working with the accounting team to figure out, if we put in ocean plastic, was that due to our margins? And then working with the sales team, I mean, can we get more business? So I don't know if I answered your question, but I mean, it just needs to be a process in your business.
Sure. No, that's helpful.
And it's help getting employees, right? I mean, so many good employees, I mean, they want to feel good about what they do every day. I mean, that's just another benefit of being good is you get people that, have other companies that they maybe can go to, but they love your mission and they love, the products they sell or build or make. Everyone feels better about it. And again, it's not only good for sales from the outside, it's also good for getting and retaining employees.
Yeah, and I imagine it'd be super pertinent in times like these, right, where you talked about how you had to scale so fast, right? Really making sure that that's built into your processes and your DNA to make sure that nobody's trying to take shortcuts to make sure that you can get there.
Yeah, I mean, just in the last month, I took 2 method people. I'm trying to hire the head of Clorox wipes. I mean, yes, I mean, it's having a green background is super helpful. I mean, that's why this person might bail from Clorox and work for us. And it is because we're doing better and she wants to feel better about what she's doing on a day-to-day basis. Clorox is not doing good. Brian, let me ask you a tough question. What was your wake up moment where you said, I want to change how, I work and what I do every day and want to consider, the planet before some of these other choices?
Sure. And I don't know if I have had really a wake up moment, right? I mean, I grew up out in the Pacific Northwest where, at home pickup for recycling was happening ever since I was a little kid. So it's sort of just been in the way that I grew up. I'm a lover of the outdoors. It's being on trails and seeing waste there. It's disappointing. The fact that thinking about, how they might not be there for future generations, I think is important. And being sort of an outdoorsman, that's kind of on the front of my mind in the hobbies that I do outside of work as well. So I guess that sort of is translated into my personal and professional goals as well.
Okay.
Steve, there's a question from the off-screen audience that I think is pertinent, and I think it's touching on your exchange with Brian, and Travis surely touched on this yesterday. And I'll read the question as it's written to me. How do we make people more ethically conscious about what they are consuming in the most effective way possible?
I mean, the first way to do it is you got to make that experience as good or better. There's a great article I'm happy to share if anyone wants to email me, Steve at 1908brands.com. It's about everyone wants to save the polar ice caps, but no one's willing to work at it to do it. I mean, you and I touched on, I mean, you got to make your products work as well or better. You got to make your products taste as well or better, because no one's going to want to eat a food brand that doesn't taste very good, and no one is going to want to use a laundry detergent that doesn't work. So, I mean, the customer experience has to be similar or better. And even if it's just similar, it gets better because they feel good about buying it and they feel good about, who they bought it from. So, I mean, you do need that customer experience no matter what you're making or selling. You need that experience to be equivalent, and that's how you're going to build consumers. Did I answer the question?
Well, I think it's close, but Travis, I'm sure you have a comment on this too that you could add to it.
Yeah, I think that, first we have to inspire people and then educate and then give them the tools to make decisions in a more ethically conscious way. And, one way that I achieve that is through getting people outdoors. And I think that from some of these panelists, probably that was the impetus for us to be more responsible with our decisions, because we fall in love with this resource that's providing us such an amazing experience and makes us feel so good. And it's a big contradiction for us to then go and purchase things or live in a lifestyle that damage that very resource that provides us with such an health and well-being. So it's hard to say, like, how do we make people? I think we have to inspire and educate, and hopefully they will then start making those changes happen. I think a lot of this has to start in the schools, both formally and informally. And even in a country like Costa Rica, where we have 25% of our land under some form of conservation, it's unfortunate that some type of environmental education is not part of the public education curriculum.
Yeah.
So
those
are some of my thoughts.
I'm a big supporter of Thorn Ecological Institute here in Boulder. I've been on their board. They're one of our 1% for the Planet recipients. I mean, it's bringing kids outdoors, getting them off their iPads and iPods and Xboxes and getting them outdoors. Scholarships for, folks that don't have a lot of money, don't get outdoors. So yeah, Thorn Ecological Institute, there's Wild Bear up in Netherlands. So these are great organizations that their sole mission is, bringing kids out to the outdoors and letting them experience. My big wow moment when I was 14 was, climbing a 14er between Euless and North Euless in the San Juan Mountains, and there's a ridgeline called Sidewalk in the Sky. And it literally scared the crap out of me and instilled the power of nature into my, soul. I mean, I was already out there. I already appreciated nature, but this, I encourage anyone on this panel or listening in to bring their kids or brother or sister or whoever to Sidewalk in the Sky, because it's an amazing experience. You take a train from Durango to Silverton, you get out, you hike 6 miles into what's called the Chicago Basin. There's 4 14ers there, Sunlight, Windham, Euless, and North Euless. And that Sidewalk in the Sky, I mean, it just drops. It's not technical, but it drops like 2,000 feet on both sides. And I mean, my dad brought me there. And yeah, I mean, ever since then, just the beauty of the Chicago Basin, which has twin lakes where the 4 14ers are, it's in the middle of those 4 14ers. I mean, it's just unbelievably gorgeous. But that's the event that pretty much solidified things for me.
Yeah, I do think it's a challenge to, Steve, for instance, with eco products. I mean, I'm happy that you're here for a number of reasons, but it's great for me to connect you to the product that I have. It made me feel good about using it, but making me feel good was a complete assumption. I was assuming that you were on the up and up, that this is compostable, this is what we need to do. And for me, when I, use products and think about products, I'm thinking about my kids. I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. I think about all these young people I work with. Am I acting in a way that is good for them? and good for their future, you know, and because there's going to be a time where you pass the torch. But I do think there's a challenge for all of us in a leadership role who are thinking in these terms to, if you will, educate. And it's tricky, right? I go into a coffee shop and I see the cup and the cup says eco product. You know, I don't necessarily have time, or I'm not going to necessarily read about the product. But so there's a kind of a leap of faith there. And perhaps that's what the B Corp stamp does. You know, if we have faith in that, that might be enough. But I do think it's a challenge for all of us to educate the world as to why the product of the service or the service is one that is connected to, as Travis was saying, all of these bigger values that we hold are actually connected to this small service or this small product that we use.
Yeah. And you can't preach environment. I mean, it has to be, you know, slow education and leadership, and, you know, you gotta just be a role model to everyone, because no one wants to be told to be green. No one wants to told
Right.
or what politics. I mean, you just need to just do it, and, you know, show people that for a number of reasons it's better. I mean, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to feel, you know, you're going to educate your kids, and I mean, you will be a better person for so many reasons. But yeah, you can't preach it. You can't try to teach it. You just need to do it through leadership. And, you know, it starts from the top. And that could be a dad, that could be a mom, that could be, you know, the CEO, or it could be the VP of sales with their staff. And not everyone will hear it. I mean, I've been in sales meeting where the Walmart guy says, I really don't care about these first 6 pages. What's my cost? So, I mean, not everyone's going to hear it. I was in a meeting once where we burn tires in our backyard. I don't care about this. So, I mean, it's going to take some time, but eventually everyone will get there. And those people that I'm talking about, eventually, you know, they're not going to have, you know, I don't know if they're going to have a fulfilling life or not, but I mean, chances are they are not going to live a life that they can be proud of, in my opinion.
Steve, I have a question in that regard, and it's very ironic, but your answering this is more meaningful because of the life you've lived. Like Bob said earlier, everyone on this panel, everyone we're looking at, we are the choir. We're all like-minded. We all have a dream and an agenda. But so often when we have discussions like this, or we're reading or watching documentaries or just paying attention to what's happening and not happening in our world, I feel angst and frustration about all the people who aren't in our boat, which is about half the country, or half the planet, even, as we've been learning. What do you daydream about? Ironically, your business is skyrocketing right now, but so you don't have to, let's say, focus on growing your business. It's happening. But what do you daydream about? How do you daydream about changing the world? Like, what's impossible in your mind? Because you've seen so much in being in the business and marketing consumer, sensitive products. How are you daydreaming about changing the world?
Yeah. I mean, it is frustrating, right? Like you said, half the planet at this point doesn't necessarily care. But I just, I feel like, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some education. You know, it's funny, in the first political debate, the only thing I got out of that was a nightmare to watch, of course, but Trump was kind of starting to explain, which I wish he would do more of, why cars can't have 50 miles per gallon, because he was trying to say something that, because it's too expensive. Half the population can't afford that car. So we can't mandate a car to have 50 miles per gallon. I mean, I thought that was interesting from a number of perspectives. I mean, again, nothing's going to happen overnight. But he was describing why he lifted auto emissions, which from an environmental perspective, you're like, what the heck are you doing? You can't do that. That's going the opposite direction. But what he started to say, which was the only smart thing I've heard him say pretty much ever, was because no one can afford that car. I mean, you can't have a car that no one can, half the population can't afford. So, I mean, it's a balance. I mean, and it's going to take time. I mean, eventually we need to have a car that people can afford. So anyways, it's a process. I know it's frustrating. I get frustrated all the time. But there are trade-offs, and I wish, you know, those trade-offs could be openly discussed and solutions could, you know, for a car. I mean, how can we make a car? Not everyone can afford a Tesla, right? And they're trying to make the Tesla more affordable, but it's going to take a little time. And I think education, and I think I go back to the fact that everyone wants to be green. I mean, everybody would like to have a fuel efficient car. I think everybody would like, you know, like I said, I mean, they don't want indoor air quality. So, I mean, I hope in time, and I think this generation, I'm pretty optimistic about it, will be proactive. Speaking of Tesla, I mean, I went in there and I said, do you have a catalog? They don't print catalogs. He said, no, we don't print catalogs. I'm like, really? Everything's online. I was like, well, that's cool. That saves a lot of paper. So it's just it's a process. And I think I'm hopeful we'll get there. I try not to get too frustrated when I do see, you know, the other half of the population not caring too much, but I think they'll get there, and this new generation will help that. Are we missing anyone on the panel?
Steve, if I could ask a question, this is Dennis. Can you hear me okay? You know, we've talked a bit about experiences and experiential learning. And then you mentioned, you know, it's hard to preach to people and get any change. It really comes through their own experiences. I relate to your climbing the mountain experience and how that changed your life. And my background, I'm working on a PhD on experiential learning for ethical leadership, to promote ethical leadership. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on how business and universities or education can work together to help give students more of those experiences. As you mentioned, a lot of folks don't have the money to go out and have those experiences. So do you have any ideas on ways that business and education can partner to foster those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, going out and hiking Brainerd Trail in Colorado, I mean, I think the good news is, I mean, a lot of these experiences don't cost a lot of money. I mean, yeah, getting to the Chicago Basin and Sidewalk in the Sky, I mean, it's a trip, and it does take a week out of your life, and a lot of people can't maybe afford that. But I mean, businesses, the colleges, fortunately, they're all on board. I mean, universities are doing everything they can to be greener. So I again, that has to do with the new generation, and I think they expect that from their universities. I'm trying to work with the University of Colorado to find a chemist, because I have a great chemist we just got from Method, but we need more help. And so we're trying to work with the university to bring in some chemists from the University of Colorado. And then we'll, you know, work with them on our plant-based products. But I don't know what else businesses can do other than you know, try to hire and instill and pay competitive wages, and, you know, get those folks out in the outdoors, and, you know, support, you know, education camps for their kids and so forth. You know, Thorn Ecological Institute. So we'll pay our employees tuitions if they go to Thorn Ecological Institute. So, I mean, those are some things that you can do in your business, is, you know, help support some of those environmental programs. And, you know, if one of our employees wants to go out and, you know, part of B Corp is we have volunteer hours. So they go help, you know, Leave No Trace, which is a group that helps with the trails in the outdoors. So businesses can let their employees go for a day to go improve the trail systems.
Thanks, Steve. Unfortunately, folks, we're out of time. This is yet another session that we could have a whole week just working on these issues. We knew that would be the case, and so the 45 minutes is somewhat deliberate. And I just want to encourage people to consider this as planting a seed. And it's the beginning of a conversation. I hope it inspires people to take this conversation into into greater audiences beyond this one. And to help you with that, this session's been recorded. It's going to be produced and available within 1 or 2 weeks. And we're hoping that it could be something that you might show. You might use the introduction, and you might use the whole session as a prompt for discussion with your colleagues, with your friends, with your families, whatever it might be. But it's surely this idea, Steve, of leadership, the central role of leadership, what we call ethical leadership, as driving these ideas and these values. Is essential. So we are thankful for you for leading us in this discussion. Thanks to the panel for bringing the dialogue, for bringing dynamic to the dialogue. And yeah, let's take this discussion beyond this session. Thanks, everyone.
And just to reiterate, I will put it again there, that link. But Steve, I don't know if I captured everything. I couldn't find that one article you mentioned about saving the Arctic or something like that, but everything else that you were mentioning is in that link. So for the panelists and for the attendees, the Thorn Ecological Institute, Wild Bear, I was trying to keep track of all the great things you were mentioning. So please check out that resource list. And then Steve, if you send me that article, I will add that to the resource list as well.
All right, I'll do that right now.
All right, thanks so much. Emma, it was so nice to have you in this session and I think you have a great idea. So if anybody wants to get a hold of Emma and talk to her about her idea of recycling, dealing with the waste of the medical industry, what a great idea. Are you in Boston now?
I am in Boston. I'm here until November 25th, and then I'm back to Vail.
All right. Well, it's inspiration for all of us to see your generation on the screen. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Steve, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve,
Thank
thanks.